clarity of purpose. Are we buying this because it's strategic? Are we buying this because we see upside? Are we buying it because we think the brand's cool and it's there? And if it's the third one, I'd reconsider, because that's a tough. It's tough to down the road 5 years from now, it may not be as cool because now you're working on it. It's hard. And so I think really, really focus on kind of clarity of purpose as you're looking at what it is you're looking for in acquisition or why you're doing it. Sellers, it is in some ways maybe the same, but understand what you're trying to get out of this thing, because there's going to come a point, at least one point, maybe more, where your inclination is going to say, to hell with this. This is harder than I thought it'd be. There's this unexpected thing. We're going back and forth on these deal points that I didn't even ever want to mess with. I'm tired of talking to attorneys. I just want to walk away. Is that, are you selling if you need to? Then you probably aren't going to do that. If you're selling because it's time and you need to retire, you probably aren't going to do that. If you've just had an opportunity, then you've got the ability to walk away and go in knowing that you can walk away from the deal. And so, again, maybe not clarity of purpose, but understand what you actually need out of this. So when we have that moment where you say, I don't want to do this anymore, I know that I can either say, yes, you do. You have to. Yeah. We need to. We'll get through it. Or then let's not. Let's just go, tell them that we're done. Be done when you're done. And again, it kind of gets back to that note. If at some point we get to it where this doesn't make sense anymore, you don't have to sell, you don't need to sell, let's move on. It's not worth the pain of just forcing through if it's not meant to be. So,
welcome to the How to Buy or Sell a Business Successfully podcast. The concepts discussed in this podcast are for informational purposes only. No attorney-client relationship is intended or formed by this podcast. No legal advice is intended in the substance of this podcast. Feel free to check out our website, www.goforemanlaw.com. Enjoy the show and welcome your hosts, Jake Wayman and Sam Foreman.
All right, welcome back to the How to Buy and Sell a Business Successfully podcast. My name is Jake Wayman. I serve as a fractional business development executive for companies here in town, helping them grow their top line revenue. My wife and I are also the proud owners of the Orange Theory Fitness Studios here in town. Best thing going on in my life right now. So my son is playing soccer. Playing is a loose term. It's more sitting on the sidelines. He doesn't like people watching him. Problem with all of this is I'm actually the coach, so I'm on the field. And he's sitting on the sidelines not wanting to play. And so it's a very interesting dynamic right now. My son's super athletic, but he doesn't like people watching him. And so it's like, I don't really know how to get that over that. But hey, you know what? I'm having fun coaching some 4-year-olds. So it's really exciting. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce my co-host, Sam Foreman.
Hello, everyone. I am co-host Sam Foreman, also the founder of Foreman Law. I am awake, and that is a miracle. I have 2 wonderful children, an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old. And this morning of the recording day, my 3-year-old woke up literally right before I was going to go to bed, and he went to sleep around 3 a.m. So I'm running on fumes a little bit. So if I sound a little bit more loopy than normal, you'll know why. But the good thing is he did go to sleep, which is good.
Go.
We didn't pull his first all-nighter, which would have been a little rough.
Oh man!
So, but we're very grateful to be joined today by Ty Patton. Ty is an extraordinary attorney. Has a lot of really cool experiences in the law, both as in-house counsel for Thrive Restaurant Group, and then currently with Triplet Wolf and Garrettson, or as I like to call them when they're not around, Twiggy Law. So.
I don't know that we were aware of that particular.
Yeah. No, that's actually the first time I've ever done that.
Okay.
And I'm probably never going to do it again. So,
but Ty also is was it the 2018 or 2017 auctioneer of the year?
2019.
2019
for Kansas, yes.
Yeah, because prior to Thrive Restaurant, he was the general counsel for McCurdy auction here in town. So this guy wears many hats. Sometimes it's a cowboy hat.
An eclectic background,
yeah,
I think would be fair to say.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Ty, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what's one of the greatest things going on in your life right now.
Okay. I have 4 kids. They all slept last night, so not to rub it in your face.
That's good, but I do feel like you're throwing that in my face.
Yeah,
so.
a little bit. I mean, I am. Best thing going on right now, I am coaching one of my son's football team, third graders. Got a bunch of 8, 9-year-olds. This is the third year I've coached them in football. They're a great group. We're having a lot of fun. Big showdown with Augusta coming up on Saturday.
Oh, man.
So it's
getting real,
on.
man.
It's on. Big boy football. So it's been great. Really enjoy it.
No, that's awesome.
The thing about my soccer team is I've never played soccer a day in my life, and I'm coaching it.
Well, when it comes to coaching, especially young kids, I think what you will find is one of the best abilities is availability.
Yeah, no,
Because we need
exactly. Because I coach.
Someone's got to do it.
Because I coach flag football for my stepson, and it's like with soccer, they're like, we need a coach, and like nobody was volunteering. So I was like, okay, I'll do it.
That's how.
And then one of the parents was like, that's not how you coach soccer. Then I was like, you can come out here and help me.
Please come on down. Come on down from the stands. No, I'm with you there. I understand.
Yeah,
that's great. That's great. Well, Ty, tell us a little bit about, kind of what that experience is like as an in-house counsel. Just kind of in general, what that's like, and then maybe more specifically, what it's like when you get to the acquisition process. Sure.
It's I mean, I think it varies depending on your organization and kind of the structure. And so, we've all worked with entities or groups where there's a huge legal department. Or they're really regimented. And so, this is my little niche. And every time you talk to them, there's different people. My experience has been, for the most part, I have been the legal department. I mean, small, kind of the only in-house attorney in my roles. And so that's probably a different kind of weirder experience than some in-house, because you kind of do a little bit of everything. Whatever comes in the door, you kind of consult on. And then especially at Thrive, I wore 2 hats there because I was also the director of real estate. So, my lens was kind of site selection, real estate portfolio management, and then also attorney, which I enjoy. I think it's one of the things about the right in-house role that can be really interesting is because it's not, you don't know what you're going to be doing. I mean, it's a little bit of everything. Yeah. Really, really interesting work.
Well, and when you joined Thrive, it was they were getting ready to have their hockey stick growth from an acquisition standpoint and everything. So what really kind of started prompting those conversations to say, did they have an in-house general counsel before you?
No, they hadn't had one for a long time. Yeah. More than 10 years, I think.
So when you're in those conversations, when it prompts hey, we're going to start making some acquisitions, was there a strategic, focus of, hey, we want to get this many, or we want to go, because you guys bought the Modern Market or Market Fresh or whatever.
Modern Market.
So what kind of goes in that from a strategic consideration? When you're looking at that, what's kind of that first process say, okay, we're going to start making an acquisition strategy?
Sure. Thrive in particular, opportunistic in that, they have goals. They had, where they wanted to go, certainly, but they were really good about not getting so laser focused on, hey, this is the only thing that we're going to go do or can do, that they walk over opportunities. And so, they were very strategic through COVID. And that really was kind of the spark for some of their growth.
Yeah, because they had Applebee's is what
they did 2 acquisitions through COVID.
Yeah.
That were, started on the front end, got derailed, and then kind of put to bed because the whole world was confused about what was going next. But then through the COVID process, had the opportunity to go, risky certainly at that time, but an opportunity to be aggressive when everyone else was pulling back. And that was kind of the jumping off point. And so that was part of it, is having kind of a healthy level of risk tolerance. To be able to go do stuff when other people aren't. And then, I think what you often find is once you start taking on projects, once you get the reputation of someone that will go pursue stuff, will take stuff down, you're not just window shopping, stuff starts to find you because you're somebody that's actually active in the space as opposed to just talking about it. And that opens more doors. And then you can start to figure out, is it more of the same stuff? Is it ancillary things you like to do? And they were good about that.
So kind of being opportunistic, but now when the deals start coming, there's got to be a little bit of a structure there. So if if someone comes into you guys and says, hey, here's this opportunity, not saying you have to act quickly, but it's you need to be set up to be able to do that. So what are some steps that you took from an in-house counsel to be prepared for those acquisitions?
Sure. No, that's the tension. And I think the organizations that are growing, thriving, hey-o, are the ones that have the healthy tension of, hey, we're not scared of risk, but we're still have some discipline to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're still going to build around and say we're not doing everything just because it's there, or we're not chasing stuff just because we think it's a deal if it doesn't fit into what we want to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But at the same time, we're not so scared, or we're not shutting the door on stuff that is a little different. I mean, I think the modern market fits into that.
Yeah.
Just on paper, you wouldn't say, let's go buy this other, let's start down this other road. We've got some stuff we like, but it, in the background, especially, there's some stuff that fits in both culturally and, kind of brand cohesion. And so they weren't scared to go explore some ancillary stuff. In-house at Thrive, especially, what you had to be ready for is just kind of always be ready to go when it's time to go, because that was the other thing is when we decided to do something, it was going to go fast. And that was some of the opportunity that would unlock is if you had some chances where, say, if you guys will move quick on this, there's a need on the other side to move quick. And if someone can solve that, that's part of the value of this transaction. Yeah. And so you're gonna unlock some value because they're valuing so heavily someone who can be a quick partner on this for all sorts of reasons. Yeah. And so the big thing there was just hang loose, be ready. Yeah. Rock and roll on something. And it was kind of like, was the hold on loosely, but don't let go. You may be on a project and say, this makes sense, right? And you're excited about it, and then it's like, this one's not going to be it. And then you got to pivot and look at the next thing. Because, as you guys know, your batting average is not 1,000. Like, you're going to look at stuff, maybe even go down the trail a little bit and explore some things, and then that's where the discipline comes in and say, no, not this one, on to the next one already. Yeah. And in my view, and I think this is true of acquisitions and almost of any size, is a big value is a quick no. Like, look at it. If the answer is no, let's mow and move on. But don't let one 100%. Just stumble around and chew on it, because now it's a distraction. You're not going to do it probably because you're trying to talk yourself into it. Yeah. But it's distracting you from what you could be going doing. So being willing to look at stuff hard, make a quick no decision and move on is valuable. And that's what you kind of had to be ready to do. And you never do, because that group is active all over the place, and you never knew what kind of weird or cool opportunity may walk in, and you're going to be buying a bunch of stuff in North Carolina. I mean, that's just the way they operated. And so that was a fun part of that job. Yeah. But you had to be ready.
Yeah. I'm a big advocate for break it fast, at the beginning of the deal. If it's not going to work, break it fast. When you've got a big organization like that, and you've got a lot of people that provide input, into the decision-making process, is there like a shared sense of, hey, here's what our key requirements are that help to guide that process? Is it a little bit more unstructured, or is it just one of those, you kind of know it when you see it types of things?
All of the above, I guess. That depends on your leadership. Some leaders are a lot more comfortable with know it when I feel it, kind of a feel player, right? Yeah. And some are, hey, I need to see the model, I need to see the spreadsheet. And so that's going to be identifying what you're comfortable with, what your leadership, what your partners are comfortable with. And then you get the team used to looking at deals. If you're going to be in acquisition mode all the time, you've got, whatever your group of the first 6 in that have done this a bunch, and they know what they're looking for, and they know kind of the expectation of a quick turnaround in terms of what answers, and like, here's the 6 first things I'm going to look for. Here's my initial reactions on that. And then before we go any further, we can say, okay, now at least we've got, is this a immediate no? Is this a go further? Is this but that group is kind of developed the discipline around, hey, I know what's going to be asked of me. I know what I'm going to look for. I know what I'm going to ask for. Right. And then I know that I need to quickly turn around and say, okay, here, I understand my piece. Here's what I know. Yeah. Here's what I think. Yeah. And then you can get that first decision made quickly.
Well, kind of on that note, because you guys have the deal team. So what are some key signals that you guys are looking for kind of on that thing for what signals like a great opportunity, or one that like, hey, heck no, we're going to stay away from making that quick no? Like, what are some key signals you guys we're looking for?
Again, I think that's really specific as to your group, your entity, your because part of, especially in the restaurant space, restaurants are hard. I mean, low margin, high failure rate. Yeah. Everyone thinks they can do them, and they're just tough. And so especially in a restaurant space, you to be really confident in what you think your value adds are. And so as you're looking at deals and you say, look and say, well, I think we'll just run it better. Well, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks they're going to run it better.
Yeah.
And so where do you actually see that you can find a line item or something where you say, hey, here's something we can unlock or do better. With Thrive, I mean, you had Bond on here, 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's people.
Yeah.
100%. They're in the people business first. And so one of the things, their strengths has been, especially through COVID, when staffing was just horrific. I mean, that was a huge problem. Because of their kind of investment in people and belief in people and strength around that, that's a place where that you can feel confident looking and say, hey, maybe this is a value add for us. We think we can solve some staffing stuff that maybe you haven't.
Yeah, because you got to think about like where's the upside? Because you're not gonna buy something for status quo. Like you're there to like, for my world in the private equity world. I mean, like the private equity only wants to purchase something because they know they can create a better return.
100%.
And that's what you got to think about. That's why I kind of see as Thrive is in a way kind of its own private equity, but it's really more of a family office because it's family owned. But like it is that is like as they're growing, it's like they've added a lot of brands here recently, but it's because they see the upside of what they can turn it into. What they can do with it.
100%. And you're not going to be. And that's the other thing is, I mean, what's your risk tolerance? Maybe you're wrong about some of them, right? Or it's harder than you think.
Yeah.
But if you're honest about that on the way in, so you're not out over your skis. And that's again to where if you're just looking at something and say, we'll just do it better, that to me is you're out over your skis problem. Because if you can't just magically do it better, now what? Whereas if you can have specific things to say, I can improve, whatever, here's 3 points I can find in the P&L. That's a very different analysis than just, they're pretty sloppy. We'll be better at it than them.
Well, that's why you need to have a good blend of the person who's the gut person, but then also the numbers person too.
Who's diving in and saying, hey, I'm looking at, operationally, here's how we can do things. As opposed to just the firm belief that you'll be better at running a business than the guy that had it before.
Yeah. Right.
Which is, I think, of all sizes, that's not unique to the restaurant space, but that's a trap that you fall into sometimes. We've all probably worked with clients on that. That is like, why are you buying this? Well, because we can, and it kind of makes sense. And it's like, well, does it make sense? I mean, how does this deal make sense for you? It's like, well, when I get it, it'll be better.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, okay, I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all rooting for you. But that should give you a little bit of pause if the plan is kind of step 3, be good.
Yeah. So it sounds like, one of the key takeaways, especially for a lot of our listeners and viewers, of which we have so many. Thank you, audience.
It's on the YouTube. YouTube channel?
Yeah, it is on the YouTube.
Yeah,
so we're on the interwebs.
The YouTube Premium, probably.
Is that you really need to create some accountability for yourself during the process. We've talked to folks before about, don't fall in love with the deal, fall in love with the destination, and make sure that you're really honest with yourself about why you think this is going to work better, if that's what's necessary for the acquisition to make sense. Because if you don't start off with that clarity before you get to the deal process, then you're going to risk getting caught in the allure of, oh, well, this one, and I can close this one.
Yeah.
And then the process, as is just, it's so many details. It's so much work. Like you can lose sight of why you're doing it and why it makes sense.
You will, I think. I mean, that. And you talk about this a lot about you building your team. Some of that's being honest about which guy are you or gal are you? Are you the, hey, this feels right, or are you the technical analyst?
Right.
And you need to be honest about what you are so you can make sure you've got the other piece of that.
Yeah. No, that's really good.
It's really dangerous when you get 2 dreamers that are the guys, right? We're making decisions and it's just like, this deal's getting better as we talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, well, are you selling yourself on this deal right now, or are you actually being honest about it? Like, who's the one that's saying, hey, sober dose of reality? I don't think that those are all aspirational numbers. And so that's part of the team too, is as you think about that, like, are we all just kind of hopeful thinking on this, or is there somebody here that's the numbers guy that's going to, and everyone's going to be mad at the numbers guy at some point. It's like, oh, dude, you're dragging us down.
Well, after they get done being mad at the lawyer, but
sure. Well, that's later. The lawyer ruins it later, but first the numbers guy ruins it, because it's like, well, when we start
the math doesn't matter,
ratcheting stuff down, it's like, we're not going to hit that sales volume. We're not going to do that, and like, you ruin everything. Kind of.
Jake and Sam here.
Thank you for joining us. If you find this content helpful, please like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and especially leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or iTunes. Really helps us out a lot.
Yeah, 1 star, it's on Sam.
Yeah, it's definitely on me.
Well, but then again, that's what I value about, the successful private equity groups, because they are easy. They can look at something and know it caught up in, oh, this is a great deal I need to be a part of. It's more of the destination. And like they have the thesis that they're going for. And so they got to look at tons of deals. And I mean, in a way that, they got to get good. They have to get really good at saying no, even if something looks great on paper, but there's something about it that just doesn't make sense. But you got to be quick to make that decision. Like we're, right now with Infinity, we're working a deal that we sent to 300 potential buyers. We've narrowed it down to like 10 people who may actually submit on it. And that's going to narrow down to 5. But it's because we put the information ahead of them, and they're making a decision based on, what they're seeing, what they're feeling, those sort of things. But it's like, what I love about private equity groups is like, they're quick to just say, nope, it's not. And you don't take it personally. It's just, it's like, and this is where we have to educate business owners on that we're working with. They're like, if they say no, it doesn't mean that your baby's ugly. It's because it's not a fit for them, or something. And that's where, and we have to tell the story. We have to put the story together for private equity to see that it's an opportunity for them. And so we link up the right buyer and seller together.
Well, and there's a good takeaway here between some of what you've said, Ty, earlier about like not getting out over your skis and not all the deals are going to work out. And what you just described, Jacob, about a competitive bidding process where you're getting multiple buyers to the table, is that whether you're on the buy side or you're on the sell side, like margin matters. And because you're not always going to get it right all the time. And if your deal model is maxed out of, hey, for this to make sense, I've got to make this stuff better and I can't really explain it, but it's just going to be better because I'm going to do it. Or, you're putting all your chips in on this particular acquisition, or you're on the sell side and you've only got one buyer. Not that that's a bad outcome. And we see that a lot, especially in small business M&A. But is as often as you can, trying to put yourself in a position, whether you're on the buy side or you're on the sell side, to have margin for error. Because these transitions are such a information intensive process. Like you're gonna miss stuff.
But even but I think at a smaller business scale where it is that one buyer, one seller kind of going on like a transaction that way, that's where it's so critical to have that number side of it, because you're most likely going to go take out a SBA loan. You're going to be borrowing money. You're going to be putting personal guarantees down on everything. And if you make one bad move, you're upside down. And where in private equity, there's a little bit more margin there. Within, because the standpoint that you need to have to probably kiss a lot of frogs in order to find something that's great. But like, in our situation with like Orange Theory, like we were a small business buying a small business, and it's like one false move and you now are looking at potentially bankrupt because you still owe that bank money.
And this is, maybe you guys have had different experience. This is my kind of working thought. The other challenge of like the one-to-one, the small, is the smaller the business, the more likely is there's something, because it's just one guy, right? One guy. Maybe they're super active, they understand every piece of it, but there's probably not. There's probably a reason they have that business, probably something they've done. There's probably something they're really good at, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the bookkeeping. It doesn't necessarily mean it's record keeping. It doesn't necessarily mean it's strategic. And so there's more likelihood, I think, that as you go through the due diligence and get to know each other process, we're going to learn something that surprises us both. It's not, oh, you didn't tell me that. It's like, oh I guess that is how that works. And that's just the nature of, there's not a giant finance department.
What do you mean you're not going to pay me for my retained earnings?
And a compliance department. It's just a guy. It's just a founder. It's just, and there's just or a couple, and this is all they're doing. And so there's just, there's a lot more. Talking about that margin, all that, there's a lot more likelihood that we're going to both learn things together through this process that we got to figure out. Which makes it, kind of an adventure.
Yeah, I think that's completely wrong. No, no.
Disagreement drives engagement.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot to that. Because at the end of the day, every deal is about an exchange of value.
Yeah.
And especially in small business M&A, you're trying to figure out and identify exactly what that value is and then how to transfer it. Because, on the buy side, like the business is only worth the value, or at least this is what I encourage people to think about it as, is the business isn't worth what the seller gives up. It's worth what the buyer receives. And if you've got a business where a ton of the value is concentrated in the seller and the seller's not sticking around, And it's like, hey,
it's the personality, right?
Right.
I mean, like that's
right. Or like, look at the client list. It's like, that's the sellers for golfing buddies, and it makes up 65% of the sales. Like, those aren't your golfing buddies. You better figure out how to make sure that transitions if you're going to pay for it.
Yeah. We were in a conversation with a small business that, he was wanted to sell it. He was, 65 years old, ready to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started asking him, it was a little bit smaller than what we get involved with at Infinity, but was chatting with him a little bit about customers. And he's like, oh, well, I got these these 5 or 6 solid customers. I'm like, okay, well, do you have the contracts? Oh, it's on handshakes. Those are all relationships of mine. And like, well, how often are you in the business? Oh, I'm in here every day. I work 50, 60 hours a week. I'm like, okay. And you want to just leave tomorrow. And he's like, oh yeah. And he goes, and I think it's worth this much. And it's like, and it was more of this thing of like, that's the situation where you're in is like people think their business is worth a lot. And when you really dive to it and getting deeper into it, it's like, there's really not much value there to be transferred because the value is built in that person and that person can't transfer over to you. Right. I think when you get into larger stuff now, like getting into larger deals like Thrive is doing is now you're dealing with a lot of people. And again, back to what Bon was saying is, when you're going in and making the acquisition of the Qdoba's that you guys did out in North Carolina, like you're inheriting teams. You're inheriting.
Well, that's a on the other end of the spectrum. You want to find a way to get both people surprised is acquire restaurants or retail where there's a bunch of people out away from the corporate office doing stuff and so we're all hoping they're just doing what they're supposed to do all the time. Yeah. But probably there's something that's going to surprise both of us as we get into it and say, you've been doing what in this store, or this is broken and no one told us, or that's the some of that's the adventure of a restaurant acquisition, or I think any retail where you're having a bunch of retail locations where it's just there's a element of we being corporate hope we know and we think we have a pretty good idea. Yeah. But what we really know is what we want them to be doing. Yeah. And then we're all going to learn through the due diligence process how much of that they're actually doing. And so it's super team driven, and especially one of the interesting things about restaurants, it's a big operation. People you think, well, it's just a 5,000 square foot breakfast place. Like, how many people can it be involved? A lot. Yeah. And you've got to, there's significant investment in equipment. You got kitchen managers and the team's big. And so you really have to think of it as not acquiring a business, but as a series of small businesses you're acquiring. Oh, yeah. Because that general manager, especially in a small town, that general manager might be running one of the biggest businesses in that town. No one's thinking of it that way because they're just a GM at a restaurant. But if you look at number of people employed, number of revenue coming in, that's true. If you're in, a small town in Kentucky, the person running an Applebee's there is probably controlling one of the biggest businesses in that town. Yeah. So that right there was an acquisition that would take some study and thinking. Yeah. Well, you're going to do 49 of them at the same time. Yeah. And so there's a whole nother element there of how do you quantify that and, build that in and start to dive into all these different little businesses.
And I love that point that you make is that, when you're looking at the deal is you got to figure out how do the individual pieces fit together and then how to think about how they fit together as a whole, especially when you're in a, in an acquisition like that where you've got multiple locations and they all have some sort of independent dynamic to them. And I think you could probably see a similar thing if you were buying a larger corporation, not just a larger entity, but one that has multiple divisions, is trying to figure out how do these function? Do they function cohesively as a whole, or are they functioning independently so that you can think about them correctly in that fashion?
And what are you walking into? Inevitably there's some dynamic, good or bad, between, in your example, between the different divisions and the home office and the satellite office and the manufacturing floor and whatever, or the different locations. What are you signing up for? Is there 13 years of dysfunction because, these two locations have hated each other? Because we feel like all the investments in Denver and everyone ignores us down in Dallas, whatever. And that's, how do you quantify that on your spreadsheet? Yeah. And that's where you get past the initial yes. Then there's this other piece of trying to just wrap your arms around what you're doing and trying to get, above we got to get out of probably the shared Dropbox at that point. We got to get out of the vault. And someone's going to have to go talk to some people and that next layer because you got to figure out what you're involved in.
You talked about earlier, like you've got a blend of people on the team and you've got some people that are like operate and they thrive. Their superpower is bringing their deep levels of intuition and ability to read human beings to the table. And then there's other people that are very much in the technical details. Show me the spreadsheets and I'll explain to you how this really works. And where you really need all of that is, on an acquisition, because your numbers are going to tell you what happened.
Mm-hmm.
They're not always going to tell you what the future is going to look like. I mean, they'll be an indicator.
Yeah.
But especially when you've got large, complex systems like every business is, and, the larger, the more complex, the more variables you get into. But you start getting into some of those and like listening to those human dynamics, listening to that, hey, something's a little bit off here, or hey, I can't put my finger on it, but there's a huge opportunity here. There's probably a reason for that.
100%.
And even if it's not something you can quantify, trying to figure out, okay, what is it? Why is that? Why are my spidey senses all tingly or whatever? So that you can then be able to have that added piece of information that lets you look at the future. And it might just be like, hey, something's a little bit off. I know what it is. All the salespeople have started slowing down and they don't have a CRM. So they don't have, the ability to document that, but I can just see it. I can feel it. And that's what it is. Right. And so I know that the pipeline's going to start to tail off. And so then I can give that information over to the numbers people. So the numbers people have something to work on off of, to be able to patch some of it together, or to be able to say, hey, there's some sort of toxic dynamic here. Well, what is that going to look like? How long has it been going on for? Has it started showing up in, retention rates or attrition? Because that stuff, will lead to, whatever those human dynamics are going to show up at some point in the numbers, or they'll already have showed up in the numbers. And if you understand those, then you can kind of piece all those together, and then you can make better decisions during the deal process.
Agreed. I give you an example. This is a non-Thrive deal. It worked or helped with a potential acquisition. Nothing ever happened of it. And salespeople had their commission structure changed.
Oh,
dramatically.
Oh no.
So,
oh no.
But it was very new.
Yeah.
And so you had all this historic, hey, some of these guys are killing it.
Yeah.
We decided we were paying them too much. So we changed the commission structure. And now you're looking at this and you're saying, look at these sales, look at my team. If you don't go a layer, if you're talking if you're talking to leadership, like these guys are great, these guys are killing it. Here's what we've done the last 5 years.
Yep.
Right.
If you don't talk to those guys, they're out there and don't realize that a bunch of them are 1 foot out the door because the commission structure changed.
Yeah.
So the numbers look good. We changed the commission structure to keep a little bit more in-house so we can make the numbers look a little better. And you're signing up for this thing is running itself. Right. Well, it's not, because as soon as you close, your sales team's gone.
Tell me what's happening to that pipeline, folks.
Right. The pipeline is gone. It is already on the way to a competitor, and you don't know that. There's no way to know that from a spreadsheet standpoint or from a show us your documents or talk to the leadership standpoint. You got to find a way, whatever that process is, to get a layer lower to engage with what's actually going on. What do you sign up for? And then you would talk about toxic. Man.
Yeah,
they're ready to burn the place down.
Yeah. I had something similar to that happen to my dad growing up, and it was just, it's amazing. Like, some organizations get to that place where they just decide that, hey, there's some people that are making too much money in the 100%. Business.
Yeah.
And, that's something like, if you pick up on that and you're a buyer and you're looking at a seller that started to demonstrate that behavior, that should be a red flag that requires more understanding. Because if that tells me that they're not making a calculated business decision on some of that stuff, they're making an emotional decision. That's too much. Well, tell me why.
Or short term, right?
Right. Or short.
And there's got to be somewhere else where that thinking didn't just start there.
Right.
I mean, that to me, that's the where it's also
exactly.
Red flag. It didn't just pop up in this one thing, probably.
Yeah.
There's probably some other stuff. We start peeling back the onion, where they've been kind of short term or opportunistic, rather than strategic. And maybe it's all going to be fine, but just know that you're about to embrace all that.
And one of the most valuable things you can do if you're a buyer and you're looking at a business is figure out what's changed recently. Because your ability and your team's ability and your bank's ability to look at financials and tell you if it's a good deal or not is limited based on what happened. And what happened and what is going to happen are different things. And so if people have made those changes, you can ask questions like, hey, tell me how your comp structure changed. Have you had any pay raises lately? What does that look like? So that then you can start to understand, okay, well, everybody got 20% raises, or nobody's had a raise in 10 years, and that's ridiculous. Nobody's had a raise in 2 years, and now they need to be adjusted up, so we're below market. And
No, they're
And-
gonna have you do it after you close.
right, exactly. But all of that is, there are things that you can learn about that'll help you be able to better predict what's going to happen. And one of the things we've started doing, on our small business deals is encouraging people to have regular touch points with the seller to say, hey, tell me what's going on that's maybe a little different than what happened in the past, so that you can have, as long as your seller's honest, which if they're not, just walk away right then.
Right.
You can have some sort of idea of, hey, when I'm basing a lot of this on ordinary course continuing, is there something changing that I can be aware of to intervene? And then the other one is talk to them about pipeline. Like, what are you doing? Just to create that transparency and accountability. In the
Well, and again,
process.
it's like you need to protect yourself, get some reps and warranties in place, because you need to protect yourself. Because there's a lot of unknowns when you get in there. I mean,
right.
From our standpoint, like with Orange Theory, smaller business, but when we got in there, previous owner wasn't maintaining the equipment like you should. And we had to invest a lot of money in updating a lot of the things in the equipment, because he just wasn't, putting the money into it.
Right.
And so just like, there's a lot of things that you just don't know. I wouldn't have known that. I mean, outside of just running on the machine or something, but it was more of those things that, like, just lots of stuff that are small, but they're going to have to be investments.
So did you figure that out after you closed, or before, as you were just going through the process?
It was after we closed.
Okay.
After we closed, like we had it was more of like, I knew because I worked out there, I knew the equipment was not in a great place, but I didn't know he wasn't doing the.
You just thought maybe you were so strong that it couldn't keep up with you.
No,
so
but what I learned about the machines is, like, within the treadmills, you have to have to keep them under warranty. A certified person has to be working on them, and so there's a lot of things. And so I had to sign. It was like just the small things that you don't really think about. Again, I was caught up in the deal versus the destination. I mean, it's been a great purchase, but it was more of like things that you just don't expect down the road. Like that's one of the things I should have said. Like, hey, how often do you have to get new equipment? When is that, a purchase? Because that's part of our franchise agreement. There's a lot of ties to that and everything too. Because in the franchise space, which, Thrive was very heavily involved with, being the franchisee, I mean, there's a lot of things you're signing up for that, you need to make sure. Because again, when you're buying a franchise, you're buying into the franchisor as much as you're buying the franchisee that you're acquiring too as well. So you're almost making two acquisitions in a way, because you're having to go make sure that you're in the same lane with the franchisor and what they're doing, because they have to approve you. Yep. But then also the franchisee, are they abiding by what their franchise agreement says? Because there's a lot of franchisees out there that, they cut corners on a lot of things, because again, we've talked about it earlier, is, they're having to pay royalties back to the thing. So they're having to, cut costs here and there, because they do have that margin cut from them, because they're paying the royalties back into the franchisor. Just there's a lot of things when you're doing
that's probably a whole episode by itself, but I think you almost can't overstate that point. You better understand what the franchisor relationship is like.
Yeah.
And you better be comfortable, because there's great franchisors and there's very punitive franchisors that are going to grind you into the ground.
Yeah.
And so that's the other part. You can build all the protections you want, reps and warranties, into your deal. And we're going to have our non-competes. We're going to make sure that, you transition the knowledge. We're going to do everything we can do. And then I'm going to sign up, and I've got a franchisor partner that I'm inheriting through this that is not a great franchisor partner. And they sell a territory out from under my legs or out from under my feet, or put a competitor in because they can, that sorry. I mean, that doesn't fall within the reps and warranties. Take it up with your franchisor. And so there's this whole other relationship that you really need to do diligence and understand separately, because the operations can be great, can be clean, great operator. They can tell you everything. These are profitable, but 6 months down the road, the franchisor could do something that completely tanks the value of that business or the value of that brand and now you're just stuck.
Right.
Because you're not going back to the original guy, because that's nothing I can do.
Well, yeah, I mean, even case in point with us is, like, we got in there within a year of us being there, they increased the royalties. They increased the marketing fund, the brand fund fee. So, I mean, those are instantly 2% more than what we were when we purchased it.
Right. And as you talked about earlier, margin for error, that to me is a perfect place to say, okay, I'm looking at the books right now, and here's how we're going to make money. Well, if you overlook and don't look at that franchisor agreement, it's 1.5% for technology fee right now, but they have the right to go up to 2.5%.
Yep.
You better model it at that 2.5% and make sure this deal still works.
And that's
so
again.
there's nothing they're doing to control that. But the franchisor says, hey, you guys are making a little too much money, or earning calls coming up, time to, turn the key.
Yeah.
That you got to know you're signing up for that, and that's got to be built in.
Well, when I talk to a lot of people that are acquiring small businesses that were like us, that that one-to-one sort of situation, like plan for everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, go model out the ugly. Can you make it in the ugly? And like really plan that out, because people think, again, they think, I'm going to do this better. I got the secret sauce.
Especially with, and I think this is a hard thing about a lot of retail restaurant brands. If the brand is cool, you get caught up in the like, well, this is a cool brand. Orange Theory, that's trendy, right? They're going to be fine. Like, we're cool.
See, and
workouts are cool. That's hard. It's even harder to take a step back and say, okay, but what if it sucks? I mean, and it's not, and because it's easy to say, like, what if this, what if my paving company doesn't do good?
Right.
Like, okay, sometimes they don't. It's a construction company. But if the brand has some sexiness to it, it's real easy to get caught up, and you start to, you can catch yourself. You start to magically, the wand you're waving over that is like, well, what's going to make this work? It's like, well, the brand.
Well, because again,
will solve this, because the brand is going to keep increasing in sales. People love this brand. It's going to be cool forever.
Well, and the thing is fitness is cyclical. Like, you have, what I mean by that is, like, you have hot brands. So right now, Pilates is the hot thing. Pilates is popping up.
That's what I'm
everywhere. You're doing Pilates. I don't know. I can see you doing Pilates. But like, Pilates is popping up everywhere. And it's like, so Orange Theory is not the sexy brand that's out there anymore. It's still a great workout. Our product is still phenomenal, but the sexy thing in fitness right now is Pilates. And so that's where a lot of people are going to. And again, if you rewind back when we took these over in 2020, Pilates was actually falling. Pilates was actually going through a dip, because like it was big up in like the 80s and the 90s, and then now it's taking back up. It's just interesting how cyclical it is, but you can't predict that.
Right.
But again, if I'm tied to a franchise, like I have a franchise agreement that I've signed for 10 years with them, and so I can't just say, I don't know if I really want to be Orange Theory anymore. I want to be, I want to be ABC Fitness, or just walk
not
away.
So
like,
fast, my friend.
Yeah, like that's where like you there's a lot of that. And Grin goes back to the franchisor. Who's on that executive team of the franchisor? Who's making those decisions? How are they thinking strategically about the brand?
Yeah,
like
you need to have confidence in the business, and you need to have confidence in the brand separately. Right. And they may be completely unrelated, because the franchisor may just not be thinking right.
Yeah, and zooming out for just a minute, I mean, on all of this, you're thinking about, like, if you're a buyer especially, but also if you're a seller, because you want to do a good job transitioning to your buyer, you want to understand, you ought to look at this through the lens of, where does the value come from? And then how do I understand how it transitions or doesn't transition? Because you look at, most businesses are dependent upon some kind of relationships. And if it's like the franchisor relationship, it's like, you got a long, complicated contract there. But understanding, just like you talked about, where's the variability within that? Yeah. Not just the legal rights, because that tells you what could happen, but then also like asking some of those next level questions of, well, hey, where's this brand at in their life cycle? Right? Because a lot of brands, for example, go through life cycles. I mean, that's something I've learned over the last couple of years, is just to observe some of that stuff. And then as they go through their progression, what are you going to see in terms of the types of teams that they're going to stack in there, and what kind of decisions those people are going to make? Because like you talked about, Ty, I mean, there's some of those things where it's like, hey, like you mentioned the technology fee and things like that. There's a point, I think, in most franchises, at least this is something I feel like I've observed the last couple of years, where they start off with their pricing is a little bit lower, knowing that they're going to bake in the opportunity to increase it. And that's part of their progression, is if this is a healthy brand and it's growing, as soon as we hit to whatever X point is, the numbers are going up, because, we'll be able to substantiate it. Yeah. And that's just something that, is that next level question that a good team can help you ask. But the same kind of thought process, I think, applies to like supplier relationships, customer relationships, key employee relationships, is looking at like, hey, identifying first and foremost, here's where value is being created for the business. And then figuring out, well, hey, how is that going to change as a result of this? Yeah. Or how is that person's, or that company's arc progressing, so that I can have a better idea of, if I look at that key customer and it's like, well, I think they're getting ready to sell. Right. And I think as soon as that happens, all of their relationships are going to change. and I'm not going to be here anymore.
Well, and again, it goes back into we're talking with a potential client right now is like, hey, where are your contracts at? Like, are they at the end of their life cycle of the contract? Are you renewing them? Where are they at in that process? Because again, that's what's going to give a buyer some, a sense of comfort and security, knowing that, hey, these contracts are new, they're 5 years long or what have you. I know this is more in the manufacturing space, but it's like, even like within Thrive with all theirs. Okay, what's your suppliers contracts with right now? Do you have prices locked in on certain food costs or whatever?
I mean, not to get too off in the weeds, but you want to talk about just like a deal point that becomes the tail that wags the dog so often is, what can we walk away from? What can we get seller to go own and terminate and eat? What do we have to assume? We had a contract 5 years ago, and then there's been a couple emails that purport to be amendments, and no one kind of knows what the real deal is, but we're just rolling along as whatever's doing. And then as soon as you change hands, all of a sudden there's going to be some change.
Things happen.
The who owns what piece of the contracts and what you're inheriting. I mean, that, and I think it's true for every acquisition, but it is very often, and it's not something you think about on the front end very often. I mean, as you're saying, hey, well, you've got suppliers, I've got suppliers, I'll get rid of the ones I don't like, I'll use mine. You've got some contracts, I'll inherit the ones I want to keep. Maybe. There may be some, it may be a lot harder that, or it may be that there's termination fees, and all of a sudden now we've got this other deal point that we've got to wrestle with that changes the value. And so it's just it's a pitfall that if you're not thinking about it, you should at least be eyes wide open. That's going to come up. It's going to be a thing that, and then the lawyers are ruining it. And they're like, well, someone actually read the contract and it says that it's not assignable. Crap, you guys.
Well, Ty, thanks again for joining us today. Really appreciate your insights. I mean, these are very, very valuable for all of our listeners. One of the last questions we'd like to ask is, as we kind of close it out, is two parts. What's a great tip that you have for sellers? And what's a great tip that you have for buyers?
Well,
and it can be more than one. You can loosely interpret the question.
What did we not share? I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but for buyers, clarity of purpose. Are we buying this because it's strategic? Are we buying this because we see upside? Are we buying it because we think the brand's cool and it's there? And if it's the third one, I'd reconsider, because that's a tough. It's tough to down the road 5 years from now, it may not be as cool because now you're working on it. It's hard. And so I think really, really focus on kind of clarity of purpose as you're looking at what it is you're looking for in acquisition or why you're doing it. Sellers, it is in some ways maybe the same, but understand what you're trying to get out of this thing, because there's going to come a point, at least one point, maybe more, where your inclination is going to say, to hell with this. This is harder than I thought it'd be. There's this unexpected thing. We're going back and forth on these deal points that I didn't even ever want to mess with. I'm tired of talking to attorneys. I just want to walk away. Is that, are you selling if you need to? Then you probably aren't going to do that. If you're selling because it's time and you need to retire, you probably aren't going to do that. If you've just had an opportunity, then you've got the ability to walk away and go in knowing that you can walk away from the deal. And so, again, maybe not clarity of purpose, but understand what you actually need out of this. So when we have that moment where you say, I don't want to do this anymore, I know that I can either say, yes, you do. You have to. We need to. We'll get through it. Or then let's not. I mean, let's just go, tell them that we're done. I mean, be done when you're done. And again, it kind of gets back to that. No, if at some point we get to it where this doesn't make sense anymore, you don't have to sell, you don't need to sell, let's move on. It's not worth the pain of just forcing through if it's not meant to be.
I mean, it sounds like more from a seller standpoint is make sure you have options.
Yeah. If we're to the point where this is it, there's one guy you've got to sell for the end of the year. I mean, probably ought to know that going in, because that's going to obviously inform everything we're doing from negotiating and structuring and all that. And if you don't, if this is just hey, business interesting opportunity, let's explore it. Let's go in thinking that way about it. And we're not going to, walk ourselves into something we don't love or like or need just because the deal's here.
Yeah. No, those are all great Great thoughts there, Ty. Well, thank you again for joining us. And,
Sure.
And to,
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. And to all of our listeners, thanks for joining us here today. We hope that this content is valuable to you, because we know that when you have great transitions, great deals, that great things happen for community, and we're pulling for you. So keep up the great work and have a great deal. Thank you for joining us today. For future episodes, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And please check out our website at www.goforemanlaw.com/learning.